for truth.
Welcome to the Duality Check podcast, where two brothers embark on a journey through the realms of scientific inquiry, the mysteries of the past, and the uncharted frontiers of spirituality. To join us as we explore the wonders of our world and beyond, all while embracing the roles of curious bystanders rather than experts. Together we'll unravel the tapestry of existence, blending the dichotomies of knowledge and wonder. Get ready to question, ponder, and delve into the dualities that shape our understanding of reality on Duality Check. I'm Drew.
And I'm Dean. Welcome to episode number 57. And hey, cheers.
Cheers, brother.
This has been a heck of a week.
May goodness. Yeah, it's been a crazy week here, and if you're listening from outside, I mean, I'm sure the world's paying attention, but we've got a new president. We've got a lot of things going on in the UFO realm.
We've got also some really interesting podcasts that dropped this week that I've been just like obsessed with, and we need to discuss.
Yeah.
So
it's been a very fascinating time.
If we run out of just shit to talk about, then I suppose we'll get back into this part 3 of the interview with the reptilian, but I suspect we'll probably be fine.
Yes. So the title may or may not be part 3 reptilian.
Yeah, you guys know the title before we do.
Yeah, you guys know it. We're gonna figure out that at the end of this. But yeah, we've got a lot to go over. Might as well start right off the top here with our weekly Bashar.
Okay, yeah,
just get into it.
I never even looked. Did we get any messages this week?
We did actually. Nothing really to read, but we'll read it anyways because might as well.
Well, we got the one from Amy.
We do. I'll read this real quick while you pull that up. We got a message on our latest episode where we interview with the reptilian part 2. This is from Roland Keith 5322, and he says,
"Is this on YouTube?"
This is on YouTube. He says, blah blah blah, ... etc. Might, could, maybe, could be, possibly. Talk is junk."
Okay, I completely actually agree with that sentiment to a degree. Like the sentiment is true, right? Like
talk is junk.
Like that podcast and that interview, like you're not going to go take it to anyone and convince anyone of anything. It's not evidence for anything. There's no proof that it's attached to reality whatsoever. But that doesn't mean the topics in it and the ideas explored aren't necessarily worth
fully writing off,
wrestling with in your head a little bit, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely
no,
worth
you can
that,
write it off, but like wrestle with what it says and then write it off. You know?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, for the most part, like we
or
understand.
don't. It doesn't even matter because it's like for me, it's a fun thing. I find it entertaining.
Absolutely. It's like watching a sci-fi novel and being able to imagine the world being that way.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as watching Star Wars and imagining yourself in a world where all these aliens are
right. And in a similar way, like Gene Roddenberry writing Star Trek, like predicting so many technologies of the future just through fantasy.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But another thing is like I like collecting things like this into my consciousness because, you know, one day if disclosure actually does come, right, and it becomes just a known fact that we are and have been visited by multiple species.
Or even just let alone knowing whether we have or haven't been visited, knowing that non-human intelligence is real.
Well, I'm just saying, like, one day, like, let's say the disclosure happens, right? So in the future where that is a possible version of the future,
right,
there will be the day after that.
Yeah.
And the day after that is the day that everything changes, because the day after that is the day we have to take stock of everything in human knowledge and rethink about it with the new context of a new reality, right? So those of us who sort of try to do those things now, sort of try to like take on all these ideas and speculate now, you can call us conspiracy theorists or speculators or whatever. And to different degrees, some people take all of that speculation more and less seriously. For me, I find it as an intellectual exercise to
imagine,
to weigh ideas, right? And it's sort of like laying the groundwork, because I feel like, you know, that day after disclosure, I will be more prepared, having exposed myself to these ideas.
Yeah.
Because what if one of those species turns out to actually be reptilian, turns out to actually live under our world? All of a sudden, while we still won't necessarily have the full credibility on that interview, it sure gets knocked up a couple pegs. It might be worth taking a little more seriously.
Well, and even if it was a complete fabrication,
it still
serves the purpose of exposing you enough and allowing you, your consciousness, my consciousness, all the people who are allowing it to, you know, to play with it in their own minds. It gives them the ability to not be so shocked by this disclosure, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's there's a lot of things in life that are quote unquote a waste of time that aren't actually a waste of time, right?
Well, they're only a waste of time until you know that they're not a waste of time, right? Like,
well,
that's
like
the
even
only,
like, you know, for a long time, people used to, well, and a lot of people still do, would be like, oh, you play video games was such a waste of time. You shouldn't touch that stuff. It rots your brain. But now there's actually science that backs that. For instance, surgeons who play video games perform better than the ones who don't. Military recruits out of people who play certain games. There's actual scientific data now to show that it's not a waste of time, but no one knew that back then, right? So, just because you see it as a waste of time doesn't mean it actually is, and it doesn't mean it doesn't like inform your brain. The way the human brain works, the way the learning works, is, you know, these are new connections, new ideas, new ways that your brain can go. So even if that whatever you're talking about doesn't turn out to be connected to the true world, it does still open connections. It
stimulates your brain,
and possibilities.
Yeah, it stimulates your brain. That's the whole thing. Like, and like back to the video game thing. Like, and even at a lower level, right? Not talking about high, you know, people who go on and achieve, like, you know, military status, or doctors who are great surgeons who become great surgeons because of it. Like, even children who are like struggling in other ways can actually learn like hand-eye coordination from it. They can learn, you know, the ability to or have a better idea of like social like constructs, because they're protected. Like, this whole idea of like the internet is bad and like the social, like, it's just so unnatural. Yes, but video games is totally different. Video games is really more like the playing on the playground. When you're in those voice chats with at least it used to be. It's getting to the point where it's becoming more like moderated, and they want to like moderate all of the nuances, like getting all of the like negativity out of it.
You can learn social skills.
You can learn social skills from online gaming. Be like, if you actually are in there and you're in the chats and you're talking to people, real people, whether you like them or don't like them,
right? You
learn the skills of navigating, or you learn the skills of being able to like talk shit and take it from, you know, take the shit from other people. And
I was visiting,
that's an important skill.
It is. I was visiting with my uncle recently, and we were talking up all night, debating ideas, and he was telling me about how he got into playing video games, and he plays Call of Duty. He plays, you know, a bunch of games online. He's telling me about one game, or, you know, I was out just hanging out, and he went upstairs to play one of the days I was there. He comes down, he's like, dude, I just ran into these two guys, and the three of us were just cracking each other up. We were just bullshitting and like making fun of everyone. We were shooting, or even if we were getting killed, dude, we had a blast.
Time. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you meet the right, like, there was actually another instance of this that I'll just quickly tell. Is I was online playing games. This is back in like 2008, 2009, you know, back in I don't know, almost 10 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever. I don't know, it was a while ago. Anyway, man, I'm getting old. So I was playing online, and I was just in a random online game. And you know how multiplayer works, where you're usually in a game with people who are closest to you in proximity, because the game servers
to
pick up on
prevent like the lag
too long
and
of lag and
delay
and all the server speeds and all
better
these
ping
things.
times.
Yeah. And I got in a game, and me and this guy on the other team were talking shit to each other. And, because this is back when they had like open chats and you could just talk to anybody at any time. And like you're basically in the same games with the same people all the time, because it's, there's probably only, in those times, there was probably only a few thousand people in your area playing that game at that time in your area. So they kind of put you together all the time. And the same gamer tag kept showing up, and we were talking crap, and like, dude, you fucking suck. And then they saw that I had like a 916 in my clan tag or something, and they were like, dude, where are you from? I'm from 916 too. And then we got to talking, and it was the guy that I went to school with a couple years before in middle school, and we were buddies.
No way.
And we had been
That's
talking
awesome.
so much smack to each other, and to this day, he's now a teacher, and he works at my wife's school. And he brings it up to his kids. He talks to them about like the types of things you can learn and the things that you should understand about online. Like
it
chat
instantly
and stuff.
shifted the nature of the relationship
100%.
once you
And now
connected it to the real world,
exactly.
right?
Once you connect to the real world, like, and even still, like once you still have to go through that. Like me and him were both shit talkers, and we liked, and we understood that. We were like, yeah, like the only reason we were talking shit is because we like to do it and it's fun, and
right.
and because we understand that like you can give as you got to take if you want to be able to give, and that kind of dynamic of like, banter,
the way
friends do,
the way boys work.
Yeah, and exactly. Like even me and my closest friends
to each other
crap
as a way of bonding.
Yeah, and I think it was just a funny example of that. Is all I'll say. Because he even tells it to his kids. Like he messaged me, not too long ago, and it's like, yeah, dude, like remember that and all this, and I was like, yeah, dude, it's so crazy that happened. He's like, I still bring that up to my kids in my class.
That's so funny. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Was there any other messages? Oh yeah, I got this one from Amy. So she, that was last week's. So she sends these two pictures of us, which I will share with you guys. This one shows a what looks like some sort of weird flash of light in the sky, with like a streak, like a white ball of light with like a streak coming off of it. Mm-hmm. And then the second one shows
a much different image, but it looks like a big swooping.
It's like a DNA swirl coming at you with like multicolored. Looks like a comet. Looks like a. To me, what it made me think of is probably something deorbiting and burning up in the atmosphere, though, which is pretty much what I think it is.
But however, the location of it
this is not over the ocean, so this could be dangerous.
Exactly.
So, I asked her
if it is a deorbit, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I asked her if there was this
secondary, like any details to it, and
I was like, what happened after that frame? Like, did they keep watching it? Did it go all the way to the ground? Like,
yeah,
she said she didn't know.
She didn't really ask the questions,
but apparently it came from near us in the greater Sacramento area, like Lincoln, north of Sacramento.
Yeah.
And it's just up in the sky at 6 a.m.
That was this morning?
On January 24th. So if anyone's in the area or has heard anything about something coming down, let us know, because that's cool. Or knows where we can go to like look something like that up.
Yeah, because depending on which direction she was oriented.
Yeah, right.
Like even if it was west, it would have to be very far west for it to have landed in the ocean, which I guess it could have been if it is coming from through the atmosphere. But I wouldn't think you would get that view of it if it was at the ocean.
6 a.m., we got a little bit of a light in the sky. That's probably facing east.
Or at least northeast or southeast, yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, because I think we're still dark at 6 a.m. right now.
Yeah.
This time of year. So
Yeah, you'll get a little tiny
I don't
glow.
really know because I never wake up that early.
I was gonna say you had just gone to bed a couple hours before that, probably.
Yeah, literally. Anyway, cool. I thought those were cool. So let us know what you think. Do you think it's something deorbiting? Is it a UFO? Is it I don't know, messages in the sky? Cool. Let's do our Bashar.
Yeah, that'll probably finish off our first segment here. I'm telling you, we could do a whole podcast on nothing.
You are.
Yeah, for sure. That's the point.
You are unto yourself a beautiful oasis in the sea of stars that is your galaxy. You are not as isolated as you may think. Traveling to your world is not so difficult.
We can travel more slowly if we wish through the manipulation of electromagnetic and gravitic fields. The idea, however, of going from star system to star system happens in a very different way. While you think of an object as existing in a location, to us, location is one of the properties of the object. If you thus then have an object at point A, and you are able to isolate it with an energy bubble, in a sense, unlock it from any particular reality, and thus then impose upon it the vibrational signature frequency of location B, it must stop existing at location A and instantaneously start taking up residence at location B without actually having traveled the intervening distance. You have actually changed its locational variable in its energy signature.
Even though
Interesting.
So
Idea.
I could interpret that in a couple of ways. I could interpret it as like a wormhole, which that's interesting. Another way you could interpret it is through like the frame of reference of like a simulation theory.
And having the exact like coordinates.
Well, that like this entire physical universe is some sort of creation, right? And is constantly being created, and therefore, if it is being created, it can be changed, right? And so,
Or at least that there is sufficient
whether or not it's running on a computer,
right.
things still have variables can still be changed.
What I was thinking is, at least if it is a simulation or simulation type of creation, that there is some sort of data that's being stored somewhere, and maybe they have access to the data, so they know the variables in which it is existing.
Well,
so they can change
if it is
the
a
variables.
simulation, there has to be data somewhere, right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah, things can only stay consistent if their data is
they
like attached to them.
Are advanced enough to have access to data of other, universes or other planets.
Yeah.
Then they could just change the variables that would make them so far apart, and they could bring them closer.
Yeah. Very cool.
Because the idea, the idea of our position being intrinsic to us, like to the Earth itself, right? Like if the Earth itself, like not that we are in a location, but that our location is like part of what we are, but we are always moving. So that is a variable that's always changing. Because we, at least within our, physics, we know that we are moving through the solar system, through the universe at certain speeds, at least from what we can detect, right? So our location is variable, unless...
Well, and what even does location mean if not in relation to other things, right?
True.
Like, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Like you can only know what speed something is going from the perspective of something else.
Right.
You can only know where you are from the perspective of something else outside of you.
Right.
And so if you change that perspective,
Unless the only variable that they're changing is to get to our solar system, and then from there they could just use their gravitics to get any closer, right?
Right.
They wouldn't necessarily need to know the location of the Earth within the solar system. They would just need to know the location of the, which again expands it, and
well, and then the question is the implementation of that technology, if it is some sort of like simulation rewriting technology, is that manipulated through a sort of mental psychic
connection or like
manipulation
ability
that edits the simulation, or is that a technological development and they have some sort of device they can enter a coordinate into?
Or search a coordinate, right? Search a coordinate of other beings that are alive. Like we can search, another
but
country.
Is it being done technologically or is it being done
psychically? Yeah.
Which
I'm not gonna
from
telepathically.
Again, a different perspective shift, like could still be considered technologically because
technology will change based on
the biology and your psychology to be able to think things like you're taking advantage of biological technology in that sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a good thinker exercise. Wormholes could be too.
I think we're gonna talk a little bit more about that too with Hal Putoff and some of the stuff he has to say as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do we got here? What time are we at?
We're only 20 minutes in. We got time to go. What's our next one here? This is the clip from Lue Elizondo. So this is Neanderthal. That's cool.
That's a good name.
On Twitter, X says Lue Elizondo on the UFO issue in the new Trump administration. He says, I think within the first few weeks, maybe very first few days, you might start seeing some new executive orders coming out from the White House related to this topic. So here's the video clip.
This is from the podcast.
We are seeing signals of that. I think within the first very few weeks, maybe the very first few days, you might start seeing some new executive orders coming out from the White House related to this topic. You might start seeing some policy decisions. You might start seeing some individuals on the National Security Council who may have had tangentially been involved in this topic back when they were working, I don't know, maybe in Congress, working as a senior staffer for somebody. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes. And I'm very encouraged by that. And we are seeing signals of that. I think within the first very few.
Yeah. Interesting.
We've already seen some pretty crazy executive orders from Trump. Some good, some can be debated.
Yeah. Well, some I'm definitely not a fan of, but
and some that are very interesting, like the release.
But let's focus on this idea because I would love to see it, and so I watched like the whole. So on his first day after the inauguration, he goes into the Oval Office.
Yep.
He sits there and he starts signing a bunch of executive orders on the very first day. He invites press in there and he has a press conference in the Oval Office and is just talking to the press as he's sitting there signing executive orders with a Sharpie. Mm-hmm. He's conversating. He's telling them which orders he's signing as he's signing them.
And taking questions about them.
Yeah, well, and about anything. And it was just really, it was such an interesting change of pace.
It was
for how the government has been run in the last 4 years, where
it was very refreshing.
We never got to see the damn president.
Yeah, we only saw him
regardless of whether you liked him or you like or dislike Trump. The fact of the matter is they basically hid away Joe Biden for the entire time because everyone was afraid of him being found out as being old and incapable.
Yep.
Which came out anyway. But so to see Trump just chilling there, conducting business in front of the press was such a change.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, wow is a perfect way to describe it. It was just a very big change of pace, and whether you like him or not, and I can't say that I like him personally, but I do like the style of being able to see the president do the job that we elected him to do. As a people.
I like the precedent of the president.
Yeah, the precedent of the president
being on
open
camera
and
in the
open.
Oval Office, answering questions and conducting business in front of the American people. I love that, and I think we need a lot more of it.
Well, dude, he's done.
I hope he sets a new precedent with that. He
sat and talked with the World Economic Forum via live feed. He went to North Carolina and talked to the disaster relief effort going on there. He's done so many interviews within the first few days of his and I just want people to understand that it's not about him. It's about the expectations of our president and the things that we need to hold our future presidents to is this type of openness.
Right.
Whether it's somebody you like or dislike, they are the president of the United States.
And they should be accessible and answerable to the American people. The American people should be able to see what he's doing when he's doing it.
Yep. And hear the reasons why he's doing it.
Right.
Whether you like it or not.
Right.
You need to be able to hear it. And especially if you don't like it.
Right. Because that means we can address these things.
Exactly.
And we can be aware of them as they're happening.
We can have the conversation about it.
Yeah. So I just want to say bravo to him for that.
Yep.
Now, some of these executive orders were pretty interesting. Oh, by the way, during that first day, the New Jersey drone conversation came up. One of the people in the press asked him about it. And he said, yeah, the people really need to know about that. And I think his chief of staff is Susie, right? He's like, Susie, can you go find out?
Go find out. I want to answer this question.
Yeah.
I want to be able to answer this question.
Of course, she just sat there, so I don't think that was like an immediate now.
No, that was for the cameras, of course.
And to me, or like to my knowledge, at this point when we're recording this on Friday, I haven't seen him come out with what that information is yet. So
yeah, I mean, but the thing
at
is,
least we had the president in the Oval Office talking about it, so that's a step.
And I don't think Biden even knew that it was happening. Yeah. I mean, got to be honest. I just don't think he was even aware that something was happening.
Yeah.
Whether he saw news clips about it and was like, maybe I should do something about it, I don't think he ever found out.
Yeah. I also want to talk about one of the pardons he did.
Yep.
He pardoned Ross Ulbricht.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Ross is?
Yeah, he's the he's the creator of Silk Road.
Yeah.
Which is the dark web website where it's kind of a marketplace for anything and everything.
It was a marketplace, not for anything and everything. He did prohibit firearm sales
and actual violence
and like child abuse materials and violence. Everything else was pretty much. He was basically trying to make
libertarian.
He was a libertarian,
trying to make a libertarian website.
Trying to make a libertarian website,
exactly.
Right? He was trying to create a libertarian website where you can use free market money and trade anything that does no harm to anyone.
Yep.
That.
And he had been spending. He got. This was during the Obama era, right? That he got incarcerated.
Yes.
And when he's been in there for the last 8 to 10 years, something like that.
About 10 years, yeah. He was sentenced with 2 life sentences plus 40 years. They got him on basically they used like racketeering and like they basically went after him like he was a mob boss.
Yeah.
For creating a website.
Yep. That was his only charge. Was
not the one
a website.
Selling any of these materials. He created the website.
Yeah.
So
it's ridiculous.
It's essentially setting the precedent that if you create a website that other people do illegal things on, then you should go to jail for it. So why isn't Mark Zuckerberg in jail for all the times people have done drug deals
or child abuse?
Right, on Facebook. Yeah. Shouldn't Mark Zuckerberg be in jail for that?
Exactly.
And he's not. And the reason he's not is because the government didn't decide to make an example out of him.
Right.
And the reason I'm really happy with this, for the justice of it, but Ross Ulbricht's mom has been spending the entire time that he's been in jail traveling the world, going to conferences, going on podcasts, going on shows, pleading for her son and trying to get a movement to
free him. And she was successful with that with the Libertarian Party and with libertarians in general.
And what I found so interesting about this pardoning is it was the first time in history of the United States that the Libertarian Party actually made a significant political change in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened because Trump went and he spoke at the Libertarian Convention. And when he negotiated with Angela McArdle, that was the thing that she said
she wants
would get libertarians on his side, is if he promised to pardon Ross Ulbricht. And he did it. And in the executive order, he credits the Libertarian Party and their support.
Yep. Which is, I mean, again, like him or hate him,
right,
or be in between with him.
It's just it's a significant moment for the Libertarian Party.
He delivered on a promise to people that he could have very easily and these people have been shunned, from political, things for before, and he could have easily just not done it and just taken their support and went away, but so, he came through on that.
And I gotta say, it had some sort of impact on me because I've been avoiding any sort of political activity because I thought the Libertarian Party was a waste of time because it's never done anything.
Yeah, no, I think it's
never actually done anything of import, and now it has. And I
excited it.
That's pretty cool, and I'm proud of the people who made that happen,
the leaders of the Libertarian Party.
Especially happy for Lynn Ulbricht for being able to get her son back.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, that's I wanted to call that one out, but we're ready for a break, and then if you want, we can talk any more of these interesting executive orders, or we can just move on with the other stuff we got.
Well, just quickly, we don't have to talk in depth about them, but I just wanted to mention the fact that we're going to get the JFK files, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. assassination files, and the RFK files, all just declassified.
Yep.
Or because he said all these things are overclassified.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's seen the majority of what is in these, and he says yes, they're embarrassing, but these are 60 years in the past, and we need to confront them now.
And it's American history. We have a right to 100%. Know American history.
Absolutely.
And we have a right to know what our government has done.
And to declassify the MLK files on Martin Luther King Jr. Day is huge.
That was very symbolic.
It was such a symbolic thing to have done. And, again, I'm not a Trump lover.
Right.
I just am in awe of what he's doing at this moment because no previous presidents have taken this kind of initiative to actually get the people's will done.
Right.
And I'm just saying that nobody else has done it.
Right.
So you can look in the past and you can say all you want about what you dislike about Trump as a person. Mm-hmm. I don't like him as a person.
Right.
I think he is very flawed as a person. I think
super vain.
Yeah, 100%. There's nothing
not particularly intellectually curious.
Exactly. Yeah, but he understands the people are the ones who run the country. And he is the representative of the people. He's the one elected, and he has a mandate based on the election that just happened to actually provide the American people with what they are interested in and curious about.
Essentially, what we've seen this week is the fulfillment of Trump's promises to the people. So what was different about Trump's election this time than in 2016 in my eyes is that this time the way he got to where he is was through a coalition movement.
Yeah.
He made alliances with whole giant sects of people like the libertarians, also like with the Maha movement. This is how he got the RFK Jr. wing.
And Tulsi Gabbard.
Health activism with Tulsi, with Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And then what he proceeded to do this week is make good on every promise. Well, I don't know about every. I don't know about every track, but what he proceeded to do is make good on a lot of these promises and a lot of these deals he made with people for their support. And again, whether you like him or not, like that is how often does a politician promise a bunch of things, get elected, and then fulfill those promises?
Actually fulfill them. And
that's pretty crazy.
I mean, I don't want to get into it yet, but like he was clearly elected on using a different platform than most presidents have ever used, right?
Yeah,
the majority of presidents,
the internet.
Majority of presidents use the media as the legacy media, as you can call it, because me and you are from an era where all the media you would get from when we were children and
we
teenagers.
lived in both worlds.
Yeah, and now we see that media is not just turning on Fox News, turning on NBC, turning on these news networks, or any of those,
or even Rush Limbaugh on talk radio.
Right. You know, as much you value that they could be creating, that's not where the people want to hear. They want to hear long form content where they can actually see the personality of the person being tested.
They want people to be intellectually honest and engaging with ideas and saying they don't know when they don't know. Yeah. And, like seeing people with different ideas test those things against each other so that they can make up their own mind what they think.
And hear the reasons why you can't say a certain thing, right? Like when Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan's podcast, or even Lex Friedman's podcast, when he was asked questions that he was not allowed to answer based on national security and the way things are classified now. He said that.
Exactly.
He didn't hide behind the fact that, that's a great question, but, that's for another time. He didn't hide behind the facade of things.
Well, if you go back and listen to those, he was actually pretty good at like deflecting and changing the subject in certain areas.
He didn't answer.
There was some times where he would just deflect and change topics, but I don't know how much of that is just Trump's personality wanting to go where he wants to go, or him like expertly coming off as not paying attention and like being hyper focused on something as a deflection method. Like there's multiple times in those where they bring some stuff up and he just goes somewhere else.
That's true.
And there were things I wanted to know about, like when I don't remember if it was on Lex or I think it was on Rogan where he started talking about some of the UFO stuff, and then he just changed subjects.
And he has done this many times too. Like if you actually watch like a few of his long form content, he does this thing, and it's kind of famous. I don't know if famous is the word, but he does this thing where he like starts on a topic, weaves it into another topic, weaves it into another topic, weaves it into another topic, and then comes back to it eventually in some grandeur way to create a story. Because he is actually, in a way, as bad as he is at it, a storyteller.
One thing I will credit people who criticize him is he doesn't necessarily come off quote unquote presidential when he speaks, right?
No.
Like he doesn't talk with like the decorum of someone
of like a Barack Obama.
Yeah. However, there is a reason that is so successful. He speaks stream of conscious. You can tell he's coming up with what he's saying as he's saying it, and there's an honesty to that I think people appreciate, even if he does lie too, which he does. Everyone, like every president will and has, but it doesn't seem manufactured and fake. Like the way
not scripted. He comes up with it on the spot.
Yeah, it comes off as raw, and like it comes off as his on the spot thoughts.
Yeah.
And you can't really fake that stuff. Anyway, Not an endorsement for Donald Trump, but
Not at all.
what a freaking week for America. A lot has
Big week.
changed, and
Big week.
things are going to continue to change. We got to keep an eye on all the ways this country is going to be changing going forward.
Yeah, and if you're not political,
be getting some UFO stuff out of this.
It's a time to pay attention to politics. It is a time to pay attention because there's going to be a lot of things happening. A lot of things have already happened. And just quickly, I don't want to linger on this in the second segment, but I do want to mention he was on the World Economic Forum, and they asked him, and he specifically on the energy stuff, because he wants to start drilling and doing a lot of energy production within the United States now with his executive order, as far as like calling it an energy crisis within the United States and stuff.
Right. Yeah, he signed a bunch of orders to like
The WEF
fully unleash our oil production processes.
and unleash the potential of the United States as far as being an oil, an oil producer.
Full-on energy producer, right.
And the World Economic Forum pressed him on that.
What did they say?
There was one person on the panel of the World Economic Forum that was that is a representative of the International Energy consortium.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, based on
Greed, cartel.
Yeah. And based on our calculations of how the U.S. energy production will affect international prices and international, potential or whatever he was saying, do you agree? Can you agree now to putting a brief pause on this while we do some research on how this is going to potentially affect the entire international community? And he was like, basically, no. Like, we're doing America first. We're gonna basically do what is best for us, and all of you can figure out how that's gonna affect you. And we're gonna have some conversations. And he basically, not in his words, this are my words. He basically is like, we're going to do what we have to do, and you're going to have to figure it out, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to have a lot of conversations about this, and I am in talks with a lot of these other international energy producers as well, as far as buying our product and this and that already. At least he got the ball rolling on some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, he is defending his position.
It's
on
consistent with one of the executive orders I heard talked about, which was just a straight up executive order saying from now on, American foreign policy is, and I think it was in different sections, but there was he's like, we are now implementing America first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and he was also sending it to his staffers. Mm-hmm. He was sending a memo or an order to all of his staffers, Marco Rubio being one of them, because he's now the Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. Right? I think he's the Secretary of State.
Yeah, he is Secretary of State.
Him being one of the more famous of the staffers that he's going to have.
And one of my least favorite appointments. But
sure. But he specifically told him, and I think that's why, I was listening to Breaking Points when I heard this, and I think that was just one of the big ones that they heard. And they were speculating whether he sent it to everybody too. But he sent him an executive order saying, you will operate as America first.
Right.
All of your dealings will be America first.
Right.
Everything you do will be America first.
Right.
So that's the mandate that now Marco Rubio has to operate within. Otherwise, he will be...
Right. Perfect. I don't... Of course, we've talked about this before in previous podcasts. I'm a libertarian. I'm an anarchist. I actually think government, by its very definition, is a violent, aggressive institution that steals the wealth of the people to give it to the few, who then can turn around and control society with it. That's essentially what I think.
Off of it and control society. Yeah,
right. It's not really much different from a gang moving into a town and making everyone pay rent to them for protection.
Right.
It's no real different than that.
It's the same.
Same idea. It's just on a bigger scale with a bunch of decorations around it and a state religion and a flag and.
Yep.
But as long as you're going to have a country, the whole idea of a country should be to look out for its people. To the extent that a country does in fact look out for its people, it is a better country than a country that does not. And I would still prefer, a libertarian anarchist society, but, beggars can't be choosers here.
Before we cut to break here, we might be into segment 3 here. I don't know, but I will say, like your point earlier, I've seen libertarians get a win, and all of these things that have the potential, right? We don't know that the fruits of this labor, right? We don't know. We're only a few days into this administration. We don't know what is actually going to happen from all of these executive orders yet. But it really does lay the land for the potential of the next administration being more
in that direction.
Right. Of libertarian ideals and libertarian, at least focused on the people of America.
What I hope this means for America is what I hope Democrats, not the stupid, corrupt people at the top of the organization. I'm talking the street level people who typically vote Democrat because they believe they are more in a moral alignment with how a country should be run, right? Like your average everyday people who would vote Democrat. I think I understand why they vote Democrat. I understand the ideas. But for the last number of years, they've been sold lies by a bunch of corrupt politicians who have been trying to abuse your ideologies and your morality to serve them and their corrupt institutions.
Yep.
And what I hope for them is that the lesson they learn is that they need a democratic Trump, a democratic person who will answer to the people.
Yep.
A democratic person who will build a coalition on their political side of the spectrum and will take that coalition against whoever replaces Trump. And we will have the people representing, politicians who actually represent the people's views competing against each other for the people's favor, and who, whether either of them gets in office, the first day will look like an open press conference with a bunch of executive orders keeping their promises.
I just simply hope that this is setting a precedence for the president.
Yeah.
Like we said before.
Yeah.
The precedents for the president need to be people, the voice of the people. That's very simple.
Again,
and it needs to be that way.
For people who are on the left side of the spectrum who hate Trump, hopefully you haven't tuned out and you're still listening. I want you, there is a lesson to learn from what we've seen happen with this. And that lesson is that what Trump actually did in getting elected here is he broke what had been known as the Republican Party in the past. It is broken.
It's different.
And it's replaced
different.
with a populist coalition of alliances that are based on priorities that are best for America.
Yeah.
And that's what got him elected.
Exactly.
And so I hope you guys take that lesson and build something similar on your side, because the American people can only win if presidential candidates are competing for the actual favor of actual Americans and keep their promises on day one.
That's the only way we succeed as a country. And at least in a democratic way.
I'll disagree with them both and say we should not have a government, but I would prefer that situation to the situation we found ourselves in for decades before, where everyone is just taking their marching orders and all their information from the legacy media, and the political party leaders tell you which candidates you're allowed to vote for and pre-screen everyone to be already bought and paid for and in the pockets of all the lobbyists and all the banks and all the defense contractors, right? Because in the past, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you voted Democrat or Republican, because both of them were already pre-bought and paid for, and the entire political machine was fine whether this person or that person got elected, because it would still be business as usual. Trump represents breaking business as usual. Now, that happened on one side. Let's do it on the other side, please.
Yeah, and I think a fundamental reason for that is he was not a politician before he was elected the first time. And I think he understood after his first 4 years that if he was ever going to be reelected, it was because he was going to actually represent the people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did. And I think he succeeded at that, obviously. And we just need somebody who, we really do need to be represented by the everyday American who actually will sit down and talk to people and hear the views of average people and see what it is that we want for the country. You know, whether you're talking to farmers or, you know, local politicians at the local level, state level, who are being represented by the people out there in their districts, right? Yep. People who feel represented by their government,
right?
Because in the international sphere, the most powerful thing you can have is a mandate from the people,
right?
Because you're backed by your entire country. So if anything happens on an international scale,
it's more than that. But
if you're represented, if your government is represented by the actual people, you have more actual leverage on the international scale.
Yeah, right.
Because you actually understand that the people are behind you.
Yeah. But what I want to point out, and the reason I'm saying it's more than that, is because yes, it is the people, but it's the people at all the slices of society.
Right.
Right. So he's building into his coalition things for the people at the lower rungs of society. Mm-hmm. He's building into his coalition things for the middle class. He's building into his coalition things for the upper middle class and the business class. Mm-hmm. And I just want to, point out, and there's a difference between people who succeed because they have family money, political connections, and that type of person who usually flows in and out of these elite circles. You have that sort of like elite rich person. And then you have these other types who have in their life, in this timeline, in these last couple decades, actually built their wealth. Mm-hmm. And those are usually of a different class, right? Like your venture capitalists, your Elon Musk's, your what's his nuts Facebook guy? Zuck. Anyway, like you have your new money productive people who are building things. These are the people who actually their wealth comes directly from the people recently, and they have a more direct connection and interest in building and maintaining value on behalf of them, which does benefit the American people because their wealth is still directly tied to the American people because they just are creating it with the American people now. Right. People from old money, people from these political families, people from these old money families, your Rockefellers and whatnot. Those people, their money will exist regardless of how well the United States does.
Exactly.
And so they're willing to sell out the country. Mm-hmm. These are the people who you can't trust. And these are the people who I believe have had the reins of the political system for the last number of decades.
Yeah. And once you put the political system, at least more so in the hands of not necessarily these personalities, but these personalities in the future, like the Elon Musks, the Zuckerbergs, these people, yes, they're building and they're rich, right? These are rich people, but their richness is directly influenced by the people who are part of their systems, which is us.
Mark Zuckerberg's wealth would vanish if Facebook failed.
This is a more libertarian view of politics because, like we've discussed on our libertarian podcast too, right? The episode we did on it,
and the economics one.
one. these are people-driven businesses.
Right.
If they don't have the people, yes, they could fake them, but for how long?
Right.
The advertisers, the money, all that stuff's going to go away when they realize nobody is actually
Zuckerberg
ingesting this stuff. He's done a 360.
He's done a 360, and it makes a ton of sense because he's been reading the tea leaves
100%.
and how he has seen the drastic change from Twitter to Elon's X, and now like the confidence, the engagement, the growth of X under Elon, and like has been elevated back again to like the trusted source of instant news, and not because it's full of a bunch of truth, but because anyone can say anything.
Yep.
And that's the promise of the internet.
Yep.
Is that, yes, there's going to be a bunch of crap, but as long as it's just a direct connection between people, it's to the degree that it is good.
Because it's having more faith in the individual to make the decisions on their content.
Right.
And if you fully unlock those platforms and you allow people to fully moderate their own content, you're going to get fully engaged people who are willing to engage with things.
And Zuckerberg is smart enough to realize that the next generation, the Gen Alphas, they don't go on Facebook. They don't go on Instagram. That's where their parents are. That's where the boomers are.
Right.
Why would they go on there? You can't even say what you think there. You'll get freaking banned and blocked and blah. Like, why? Why would I put any time into those?
Yep.
And he knows that. He knows that his business's days are numbered.
His business model was bad.
Unless he, rights that ship.
Mm-hmm.
And he also knows that in order for him to do that, he needs, the United States on his side, because the rest of the world is also trying to censor the social media.
If he has United States, then he doesn't have to worry about the rest.
Well, at least the United States can then be his ally in trying to get to, stand up for
the right thing,
for open speech to the rest of the world. So anyway, these are all, it's really interesting.
It's all
changes.
nuanced too, and things are going to change, and we should all
good
just
for
keep
the people
our
if
eye out
Elon
for
Musk
what's
and
going on.
Zuckerberg are fighting over whose platform is more free and open.
Yeah, no, that
is great for the people.
That is absolutely wonderful.
And it's also great for the
love to see
people if Elon actually, puts up and they do some MMA fighting. I would watch that. They've challenged each other multiple times, and
that would be fun.
I gotta say, it looks like Zuckerberg's in more shape than Elon at this point.
100%.
Originally, I was on Elon's side when the challenge was first offered, but
I think Elon's got the size.
Zuckerberg's physique change.
Sure. But I think Elon's just got he's just got physicality on his side because he's taller.
I think he's got craziness on his side. You never know what to expect from him.
That's what I mean. You might get a rear naked choke while you're upside down.
But I think at this point, Zuck probably has him on training and I think fitness. So,
that's what happens when you have 7 companies under your name, and and you're running a new department of the government, the Department of Government Efficiency, the Doge.
Well, yeah, and you're apparently setting records on video games, which apparently got called out recently. Did you see that?
No way, really?
Yeah, people are accusing him of having buying accounts basically, and then pretending he got them all the way there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is
I don't know that.
If you want to buy an account, you're rich. Do it. I don't care. Just don't pretend you earned your way there. You're freaking launching rockets. You don't have to also build your way from level 0 to level 99.
I think he's just a freak, though. I really don't think he sleeps. Honestly.
Well, yeah, there was about a whole thing where people analyzing his gameplay. And no one who's played this game for so long would do this, and that. Those are clear signs of a noob. But it's also could be clear signs of someone who just plays a game totally by themselves without the internet's influence. He's not going on there looking up the meta.
Well, he's not watching YouTube videos. He doesn't have time for that. He has time to play the game, maybe, but I don't think he has time to watch YouTube videos and analyze his own gameplay and then change his gameplay based on the analysis.
He's not going to watch someone else's 5-hour stream of how to be the best at Diablo 4.
I think he probably would be the type that would just hop on the game and do the best he can and then become really good because he's just analytically just really good at analyzing all the things of whatever the game inputs him with. You know,
There was another really interesting thing that happened this week. Trump announced with Sam Altman and a couple banking
Larry
tech
Ellison,
people, Larry Ellison from Oracle,
and Massa
from SoftBank.
Massa from SoftBank and Larry Ellison from Oracle.
A $500 billion plus project to build AI infrastructure here in the United States.
Yep.
Which I am not a fan of for the reason, well, also to the best I could tell, it doesn't look like there's American dollars going to this.
No, it's all Japanese mostly.
Well, Saudi.
$100 million.
Apparently there's some Saudi money coming in too.
I haven't heard about that, but I know that Massa himself is only investing $100 million. But he expects, as far as what Massa said in that press release, he said that they expect to raise $500 billion within the first 4 years.
So if this is Trump just essentially trying to take credit for something that was going to happen anyway, that I don't necessarily care as much, but to the extent Trump or the United States has any involvement in this, I don't like us getting involved in picking winners in the AI race.
Yeah.
I would much
especially
prefer,
so early.
I much prefer a much more open competition. Let the best win and don't drop a bunch of public money on one company.
Well, I mean, it really sounds
that makes me a little nervous because it makes me feel like the United States might have power to like enforce some sort of control over that. And then the very same week that dropped that news, a brand new open source large language model dropped, one that you can download and run on your own computer if you have either a powerful Mac or like a 4090, like a nice NVIDIA card. You can run it on your own computer and it competes with the latest OpenAI models on the benchmarks.
This is fully open source?
Fully open source. So we have this company, OpenAI, taking all this money, keeping all of their AI development secret, which is what Elon's been criticizing them for. Yeah. And now you have literally the same week, a model that drops out of a company from China that is open source.
Because they want to compete.
Yeah, but like what the it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, and NVIDIA is about to drop their new 500 or 50 series. So 4090s are going to be a thing of the past. They're going to be old news in a matter of months.
Right, and they also announced some
it's gonna
hardware devices that are designed for running local language models.
Interesting.
Anyway, I prefer the future where AI is completely open source.
Detangled from
people
government.
Can download and run their own models, and that there's not some. You ever seen Westworld? Yeah. I don't want the future where there is like one mega corporation who owns
all the rights,
singular version of AI that runs the entire world. Like that dystopian future possibility is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So the more open source, the more people can run AI on their own devices for their own uses with their own privacy and no one watching or controlling what they can and can't do with their own AI.
Yeah.
You know, where you can own your own AI driven robot that helps you in your house with your chores, with your business,
without being connected to
with
some
your
central
day
server.
Job, right?
Yeah.
Like we need the AI future to be as decentralized as possible.
Absolutely. I agree.
And I just thought it was funny that there's this giant announcement of a giant centralized AI project at the same time China drops a fully open source model.
That's not coincidence. There's no way.
So,
all right,
interesting
let's take
stuff.
our second break here.
Yeah, we blew through 2 segments. Cool. Didn't expect that to be what this episode was about, but we got a bunch of UFO stuff to go over for I think the rest of this episode. So.
Yeah. Let's take a break.
Enjoy this. This is a random music group called Soul Food, And then this is their song called Sunshine.
It's so random. Enjoy.
Always that star that tells me to look away, certain in the confidence you convey. These things I'd forever hesitate to do if I didn't. Took me by surprise, opened my eyes to something beautiful. Love at first sight, I realized this is unusual. She's perfect every way, me and you, girl, we're just so suitable. I can only hold my feelings towards you as someone mutual. You brighten up my day the right way while I ride away. Give me the right of way, night and day. You still like the way she hit me like a tidal wave, hotter than the fireplace. I'm with you to the final day. Give me a pen, I'll sign a page. Reside a day for life or stay. I promise if you do the same. No playing games, let's do this thing. I'll even give you my name. I hope you come back to me one day like a boomerang. If you ever leave, you might as well shoot me in the brain. Lock and load, shoot away. I won't even look away. I won't ask you to stay. I know you gotta leave, so I'ma set you free. But if you ever come back to me, then I know it's meant to be. You're my sunshine. You always that star that tells me to I gravitate, I can't escape, I can't pull away. And these things I forever hesitate, but only if you really knew my love for you, then maybe you would stay. Always that star that tells me to look away, certain in the confidence you convey. These things I forever hesitate to do if I didn't have. You were born to shine, brighter than the stars. I'm scared to stare you on, so I admire from afar. And you keep my heart warm-blooded, love it when you're shining down, 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 down. Where'd you go, where are you now? Cold nights, you disappear. I see you in the moonlight, reflections of you crystal clear. I can still feel you here, I hear you whisper in my ear. I turn around, there's no one there. You burn me out like solar flares. I know you care, I know you do, but under you there's nothing new. At times I don't know what to do. I tell you I'm in love with you. You tell me that you've seen it all before. We should take our time. Common sense tells me doesn't take a day to recognize. In summertime, the more you shine like gold mine for 49. San Franciscan gorgeous dime. You stole my heart and blew my mind. I look right up into the sky. I wonder if I cross your mind. You tell me turn and look away. I wish I could, but it's too late. You're always that star that tells me to look. I gravitate, I can't escape, I can't pull away. And these things I forever hesitate, but only if you really knew my love for you, then maybe you would stay. Always that star that tells me to look away, certain in the confidence you convey. And these things I forever hesitate to do if I didn't have. The more you shine like gold, mine for 49. Golden eye, glowing like the glow. Please hold the line, storyline in the world. We end up like the fairy tales, happily ever after. Maybe that's how the story ends. So tell me where we're going now. You tell me we should slow it down, but you never trust me. Claim I'm shady when you're not around, but you never trust me. Claim I'm shady when you're not around, but you never trust me. Claim I'm shady when you're not around.
Did you have more of those?
No, actually.
No, it's all good.
Only about a couple.
I'm just being beer greedy over here.
My bad. I got two big ones thinking it would be good.
Yeah, we finished this beer last segment, and it was delicious.
It was really good. You like it?
Yeah, it's by Deschutes. It's called Symphonic Chronic Double Dank IPA, 9%. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I thought you'd like this one because it's more of a classic IPA style instead of
they got a stat bar on here. Piney is pretty high stat. Dank is a high stat. Juicy is a medium stat. Tropical is pretty high. Mm-hmm. Crisp is pretty low.
Yeah. It says, step to the beat of this crisp and dank symphony with notes of grapefruit, pine, resin, and mango.
Pine resin.
Oh, pine resin, yeah.
Yeah. I love piney IPAs. They're, I miss IPAs that were like super piney. There's not a lot of them these days.
Piney the Elder?
Pliny is piney, actually. Cool.
But yeah, so that's our little beer review, a little Symphonic Chronic. Yeah, we already drank our beers for the day, but yeah, let's get back into it.
Let's do it. Okay, so the next video you shared with us here is a clip from the recent Ross Coulthart NewsNation special about Jake Barber, the UFO whistleblower. Mm-hmm. The caption on this little, I'm interested to see which piece of the program this is pulling out, but the little caption on Instagram here says, Jake Barber, whistleblower, and then in quotation says, Dr. Greer, he's been ahead of everyone. CE5 is real. The ability to summon UAP and pilot UAP. It's 100% real. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's check this out.
It's like the Bentwaters. Like we had everything we needed in 1980, and now we're fishing around for morsels of that. This guy, he's been ahead of everyone. And what I find quite funny is the one thing he gets the most shit for is the one thing he's probably most right about, and that is his CE5 protocol.
So CE5 is when he uses meditation and he claims it engages telepathically with the phenomenon.
Yeah, that's his term for it. Like we don't use CE5. We don't use Dr. Greer's protocol. No to other people in the program or subsequent programs.
So CE5 is real.
Yeah, if we're going to use his term, I'll tell you what is real is the ability to go into something like a meditative state and summon UAP and pilot UAP. That is real. That's 100% real. To me, he's like the
Interesting. Okay, so I didn't expect that, and this wasn't from the main.
This is from the 2-hour.
Oh, they actually dropped that. Oh shit!
This is from the 2-hour interview with.
Ross I remember he said he was going to drop the full thing, but I didn't catch that he did.
Yep.
Sick. All right, I need to ingest that this coming week.
Yeah, so this is just a snippet of it, obviously, but I think it's just fascinating that he mentioned Stephen Greer, and me and you have talked about the CE5 protocol in the past.
Yeah. And, so my understanding,
think the efficacy of it is
the CE5 protocol is like Dr. Greer's branded version of using like psychic phenomena to interface.
Yeah, it's almost like his own way of.
He's even got an app for it, if I'm not mistaken.
He's got his own branded way of doing some sort of like,
and you can like
telepathic
go take workshops and
with it,
whatnot in order to learn it.
Yeah, it's almost like how Chris Bledsoe has kind of a natural like telepathic connection with these things based on his because of his past and the things he's gone through, and like,
or maybe his religious beliefs,
but it seems like his religious beliefs don't necessarily align. His conviction maybe, but the fact that he had all these NDEs and his brain structure and his brain chemistries have changed. Maybe the CE5 in a way is a way of manufacturing something similar to that
without the trauma.
Right. Exactly. Or at least that Stephen Greer's protocol is a way of it. And obviously the government with maybe remote viewing and other telepathic connections and that they've been researching is another way of doing it. And that's what he's kind of referring to is like, yeah, if you want to refer to it as Stephen Greer does with the CE5 and the way he does it, yeah, that's one way. But what he is saying is it's 100% real, and this is how it, and he goes on to talk about how he believes it to be real. But
yeah,
it's fascinating.
I want to pick this apart a little bit because Stephen Greer was one of the things that got me into the UFO phenomena in the first place. And it was because we were just talking about, like, I don't know, it was years ago, like back when I lived in that Orangevale house. Yep. I was hanging out with this dude, and he was friends with this girl named Kalo, and she was super into UFOs. And we were over at her house just talking, and we ended up talking about UFOs, and I was like, I had found the whole thing interesting, but I had never like read on it. And she hands me this book. It's a giant, thick book, and it's Stephen Greer's Disclosure book. And you know what? I think I had already watched a bunch of his National Press Club footage of the people from the Disclosure book.
Okay.
So I think it was back in the late 90s or early 2000s where he assembled a whole bunch of like former government officials and all these people to join at the National Press Club and give a giant press conference where all of them like were telling their stories about different UFO encounters. And this was all organized by Stephen Greer. And so I had massive respect for him early on because of that. And then later on, as he started to get into like the CE5 stuff, I think, I might be mistaken, but either he was involved in some of the like Ancient Aliens episodes, or he was either that or on some other like History Channel over-the-top documentary where they overdo the music and overstate the claims and dramatize it all for TV. Right. Which is such a turnoff to me.
Especially because if that's your only alternative to like listening to him specifically, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem with these type of people licensing their intellectual property to these companies.
Well, it's also a problem with people trying to build a sort of like personality cult around what they've done for the movement.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And to me, Stephen Greer, and because of all this work he's done in the past, I do still take him somewhat seriously. But like, then he spent this time like being like, I have the truth and I can teach you how to interface with this stuff. Pay for my workshop. Come learn from me. You know, like, when it's I, me, like that's when I get those like vibes of like, that doesn't pass the vibe check for me anymore because it's too self-centered.
Yep.
So he's got a little too much ego for my taste. But that doesn't necessarily discount everything, like the value he brings, and that even doesn't discount the CE5. But I also have to say that when I first heard of all that stuff, I was not ready for the like aliens and ancient gods and them maybe being the same thing was so far out there for me that also adding in like psychic connection to it all,
telepathy and all
was
these
like
things.
pushed it way into the woo-woo meter for me, and I was not ready for it. Since then and where I'm at now, like that all sounds like, oh yeah, that's of course.
Right.
That's what everyone's saying. But
and the telepathy aspect of it too, like being able to telepathically connect with these things if you spend some time, because we know that meditation is not something that you can just pick up overnight, like it takes work. It takes work.
There are more, but I think there are more and less effective protocols to follow. So finding a protocol that has a high success rate is probably better than you trying to figure one out on your own.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But anytime you're like going to try and like learn from something from someone, like you have to be on guard for like the like cult leader phenomenon, right? There's like there's like a weird corruption that can happen when you like, for people who find themselves in like a teacher role.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And especially, if you're just looking for personal like stuff, you should definitely. But I do think these things have value, and I do think if you're on guard and you allow yourself to keep your sanity with some of these topics, I think can be impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a lot of the topics we talk about. Right?
So let's back up now and let's just talk about the Jake Barber and the NewsNation special. And have you watched the 2-hour thing?
I've watched parts of it. I've watched probably the first hour of it. I haven't watched the entire thing.
So if you want to pitch in for anything out of that you want to throw in that I'm not aware of, I'd like to go over some of the. I didn't prepare anything. I just want to talk about it. Some of the stuff from the special, because it's pretty much like the first segment of the show. They're like establishing his character and his background, which is essentially that he was a mechanic who became a highly credentialed helicopter pilot. And after his military service, he ended up somehow involved in a program where in some of these areas where the government has these like flight and test ranges where they fly all sorts of stuff and they blow stuff up and like weird shit happens there. He was a helicopter pilot who would get contracted to just pick some shit up, move it, and drop it. Yep. And they had a very specific protocol for doing that. And then he said one day that he was going to pick up and move something. Like he was a helicopter pilot who would like tow things on a tow line.
Yep.
So he would have this like 150, 200 foot line drop from his helicopter that would be attached to shit, and he would pick it up and move it.
Yep.
And one day he was brought to pick something up, and they started breaking protocol in weird ways, and it stood out in his mind because it's like, wait, that's not our process.
Yep. And
it was that day that he was tasked to pick up this weird white egg-shaped. It's hard to call it a UFO because I don't think he ever saw it flying.
No, I don't think he ever
But
did.
there are plenty of accounts of egg-shaped UFOs in the UFO lore. So I'll call it a UFO, this egg-shaped UFO. I think in a later segment, they kind of focus on the physical weird effects that happened to him, health effects. Mm-hmm. And that's where he starts to talk about the sort of emotional impact
it had on him,
where he will tell you that he doesn't know that it wasn't something that just happened in his head, which I appreciate that he's open about that. But he said he got the feeling that the object was communicating with him and was imparting emotions to him. And there was like a peace and a serenity, but he also said like a sadness, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, what's like, and he has no context as to what that means, really.
Yeah,
but he understands that he felt that way so extremely that
he was crying,
and he was crying while
in
he
his
was
helicopter.
doing this. Yeah, while he's picking this thing up.
Yeah,
he's sitting there crying and doesn't know where these emotions are coming from.
And
he has
that's
no
not
idea.
Something he's prone to.
No, I mean,
like he's this ex-military hard ass,
and
right?
he's a pilot in a helicopter for the military.
Like, yeah,
you're not somebody that's just prone to this happening.
You don't get that far
whim.
in your career if people catch you freaking crying in the cockpit.
Exactly. And, and it does lend some credibility to him as far as being a human. At least we know he's human, right? And he can feel feels and stuff. I will say some of the other context that is revealed in the extension of the conversation is that since his I guess falling out with whatever it is that he's been doing, and now he's doing like the Sky Watchers thing, and he's doing some other projects. He's talked about that all of his credentials has been wiped. There's no record of him being this tier 1 helicopter pilot. He had to go and prove that he was a helicopter pilot.
Well, and it's important to note that he is not a singular whistleblower. He kind of came out with a team of people who have been in and
part
around
of what he was
line
doing.
of work. Or
seen exactly what he was saying.
Who can vouch for his credibility, his positions, and Ross vouched to that as well. I caught some like follow-up podcasts of people like interviewing Ross.
The other people too.
On That UFO podcast this week, he just did an interview with Ross, and Ross was talking about it.
There's other people. The other people have been doing interviews.
Ross has been working on this story for 2 years, and he spent the majority of that time, doing his due diligence on proving who and what Jake it was and who he claimed to be. So, I tend to lean towards that much of it. I do believe for sure. And I'm not just like a total. Anyway, yeah. Another thing that came along with the testimony is a video that looks like it could have come from Jake Barber's helicopter. And it's not exactly explained in the special, but apparently it is not necessarily from Jake Barber.
Right. But maybe somebody who's doing similar work. Right.
But it is also of what appears to be a helicopter line dropping down, attaching, a helicopter line that is dropped down in the video. It's sort of like an infrared video or night vision. It's attached to an egg, and it's actually landing and dropping. Yeah. Coming down far enough that you get some slack in the line, and so that the egg is on the ground and it starts to like roll a little bit. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. Here's that video from the NewsNation exclusive.
Let's slow this down to take a closer look. That's an egg-shaped UAP suspended from a 150-foot long line. We're told the craft is about 20 feet long. The egg suspended in a cradle. And look how careful the pilot is as they bring their precious cargo into land. Let's freeze frame here to look at one of the clearest images of a UAP ever taken. This is no blurry light in a distant sky. The source of the footage putting themselves at incredible risk to record this UAP retrieval. Look at how perfectly smooth the craft is. No markings at all, and no visible means of propulsion or way to see inside. Watch how it rolls, almost graceful as it hits the ground, despite being wrapped in the ropes canvas from the cradle as it's dropped for pickup. The UAP's final destination still unknown.
Okay, so man, freaking news voice and news drama descriptions. Like, I know. I roll my eyes, but. It's an interesting video.
As much as I like Ross, I do wish he was detached from a news and he could just use his normal.
He's just independent.
Yeah.
But I find the video interesting. I don't necessarily think it's fake. I don't think Ross would have released it if it was. It doesn't necessarily prove that it's a UFO, but it is good to have a visual along with the story.
I will say there is some things coming out in the recent weeks too that I've seen where there's people talking about the fact that this wasn't a UFO that was flying around and crashed and things, but something that was discovered underground.
So yeah, there is a entire 4chan leak that came out after the special dropped and this last week, because this all dropped on Saturday last week. We're on Friday the week after now. And the internet blew up with this whole like investigation of egg UFOs, and there was this 4chan leak including video and photos of like these egg craft coming from like what appears to be the Antarctic. And I haven't followed the entire thing, so I don't want to talk too much about it because I haven't been like up to date on it all. But so if you want to like dig more into egg UFOs, there does seem to be some sort of retrieval program interfacing with these egg UFOs. There seems to be something to do with Antarctica, specifically places in Antarctica that if you zoom in on Google Earth, they're always pixelated. It's interesting.
Yeah, and there's people coming out with whole stories of how some of these egg UOs really, because there's no
objects,
unidentified objects that some are saying are. Some are creating the story around, and I don't have any verification of this, obviously, but that these are hibernation chambers for potential entities that have been here for millennia and have been in hibernation in the depths of the earth, and maybe some of them are, maybe crack the egg, and maybe some of them are out and amongst us.
What if these are like mini little arcs?
Yeah.
Or what if they're freaking actual eggs from like
reptilians?
Yeah. Dude. Well, I will say that one of the Antarctica UFO photos or whatever I saw showed one in a cave type setting and actually did show markings on the craft.
Yeah, it showed the handprint, like a handprint looking thing.
Well, it looked like some sort of glyphs.
Or some sort of glyphs. Yeah, one of them looked like some sort of reptilian footprint on the outside, the one that I saw. And it had glyphs
which if there's glyphs on it, that makes me, I think it was this one here.
Oh, that's not the one I saw, but yeah, I've seen some similar to that.
Yeah. Anyway, the internet's sort of been blown up with this, and I haven't done my due diligence to keep up to date on it. So maybe I'll have more for you guys on what my opinion is.
Dude, I've even seen some new videos coming out of actual tall whites who are using social media to tell people, these are our people. We've been here for millennia, and some of these are hibernations.
Well, according to Lacerda, the tall whites are not to be trusted. So,
I guess we'll just
do
have
with
to
that
find
what
out
you will.
Until everything's disclosed and we can actually get the data on these things, right?
Yeah. All right, cool. You want to take another break here?
Yeah, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back.
All right, this is TJ McNulty, Kalo.
Well, it's 3:15 in each other's company. Well, we have our tendencies to be awake rather than sleeping. We stare into the land of imagination, transfixed by man's creation, and we're always too awake to be asleep, because it's just one of our loves, a foolish love. Well, people say imagination is only for the young, but it's still one of our loves, a foolish loves. Well, you can say that's not much to be proud of, but we're gonna be more proud of our foolish love. Well, we all fall 13,000 feet just because we love the feeling of smiling. Well, call us weird, hell yeah we are. Our quick noises and fast lip poisons, we would all die for our aspirations. We are all one of our own creation. We are all one of each other's love, a foolish love. Simple minds is the most we could ever ask of our love, a simple love.
beautiful song about friendship.
Yeah, I love the melodies of his song.
Yeah.
Too.
It's about being young, dumb kids and just having fun together and enjoying the joy of each other.
Enjoying the company and enjoying each other's, whatever you got to offer, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we got a bunch more UFO stuff, but they're sort of changing topics a little bit. So we may want to keep those till next week. I want to talk to Drew and you guys about this, what I've been kind of obsessed with for the last 2 days. But I had a couple calls for work where I had to drive to sites, which I always love because we've been slow lately. When I have these nice long drives, I just ingest podcasts and audiobooks, and it was always one of my favorite parts of my jobs until we got kind of slower and I did less driving. So this week I had 2 days in a row of distance and driving.
Good.
So I got to ingest a good amount. So Danny Jones released this podcast with Ammon Hillman this week.
Who he's had on before.
And
I've listened to that first conversation.
Yeah, so let's set the stage with that before we go into what happened this week. So Ammon Hillman is a Greek philologist. He studies the Greek language, ancient Greek. And he reads ancient Greek from the original sources. And he also used to be very much a Christian and grew up as a Christian and super devout. And through his reading of the original sources of the Bible, the Septuagint, in Greek, he came, and the surrounding documents, this is the important thing. As a Greek philologist, he has studied that so biblical scholars may learn some ancient Greek, right? And they may be able to translate some of the sources, right? But as a biblical scholar, you're really only interested in biblical texts.
Yeah.
And the study of being a biblical scholar, a lot of times is about trying to vet certain texts as authentic to Christianity.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all done through the sort of lens of Christianity. But as a Greek philologist, his scope was broader than that, and his study was broader than that. And he would read all the surrounding texts because the Greeks loved to write. And they wrote about a lot of stuff. And a lot of the content that survives to this day is this medical stuff.
And provides a lot of context to these biblical passages that were translated, right?
Well, he started getting into this medical texts. I forget the guy's name, the ancient Greek person's name. He's the way Ammon describes him is he's just he's this physician closest to that for ancient Greece, right? And he's just obsessed with writing, and he writes apparently a large percentage, almost 10% or maybe even more. I forget what the number was. Of the ancient Greek that survives to today is from this one guy.
Was it Galen?
Galen, that's it. Anyway, so through reading people like Galen and getting into these medical texts, he starts to gain this understanding of how the Greek people and how the Greek culture worked. And he gets a different understanding of the language and the intricacies of it than you would get as a biblical scholar. Because as a biblical scholar,
you're looking for certain context.
Yeah. And so to actually understand the Greek as Greek for the Greek people and the Greek culture, you have to have a bigger lens than just being focused on.
You have to have a wider understanding
Jesus,
of their text. Yeah.
Of their culture, of the way they use words, the way they repurpose words.
Right.
Anyway, so his first podcast with Danny Jones is he's talking about all this stuff, and he's talking about how there has been some pretty blatant mistranslations of certain Greek words in Christian in the Christian translations that led to the Bible. Because there's this document called the Septuagint, which we have in ancient Hebrew, and we also have in ancient Greek. And even Ammon and everyone else seems to hold the position that the Hebrew is the original source and that it was translated into Greek, meaning that this started as a Hebrew document.
Right.
But what Ammon describes is that the lexicon, like the actual amount of words that exist in Hebrew, is only like, I think he says like something like 7,000 or something. It's not that big of an entire vocabulary, but apparently ancient Greek has in the upwards of 1 million words. There's just an incredible vocabulary. And as a philologist, you're able to date and understand where and when a document comes based on like the lexicon, based on like how they use the words and whatnot. Anyway, so some of the words that he realizes are translated incorrectly is this word Christ. This is the big one. The word Christ actually goes way back in Greek culture, way beyond and earlier than Jesus, and was actually used as a drug term to mean essentially applying drugs to your eyes.
Interesting.
As a way of ingesting drugs.
So putting on some sort of like topical cream and
so to be
tripping
a
out.
Christ is to be a person who essentially has visions through this form of drug use.
Interesting.
He says there's that these other words that are super important in Christianity and then our understanding of them are wrong, and that other words that are included in that are like words like baptism, which he says is also a drug practice. So John the Baptist, think of that.
John the drug user.
Well, John the drug teacher, like he's
The drug dealer.
Well, he's a Baptist, right? He baptizes people. Oh, like he's in the business of baptizing people, right?
He's a drug dealer.
He's not just a drug dealer. He's a drug applier. He's like a shaman.
Yeah, he's a shaman, right? Yeah, exactly.
And what are some of the other words he says? Mystery. He says mystery is a word that has a lot to do with the drugs.
And their word for mystery, right? Like their original word for mystery.
Yeah, like the context and the original word for mystery and like how it actually translates versus how it's been translated in the Bible. Like he said, I forget the detail on that one. Anyway,
yeah,
his essential point and why his podcast was with Danny was so controversial is, there's another word, but this one doesn't have to do with drugs, but there's another like very important mistranslation is this word leistes.
Yeah, they said that a lot in the first one.
Yeah. So this word leistes, so apparently there's a point in the Bible where Jesus is arrested, right? He's like, the Roman soldiers come up and they arrest him in the park and he's got like a boy on his lap. And he says, I'm not a leistes. And then he gets crucified like 8 hours later. They arrest him. And the word they use, like he's saying, I'm not a leistes, like I'm not this. The way that is typically translated is like a pirate or a thief within like Christian tradition of translating the ancient
Hebrew.
Greek.
Yeah.
But within the actual Greek philologists, like who have read the medical texts or people who know like the full context of ancient Greek, he says that essentially what happened is this word leistes is actually used as this term for like a child sex trafficker, like a trafficker. And the proof of that is that Caesar himself, as a child, was kidnapped by these pirates and trafficked. Really? And then when he came to power later on, he crucified all these people who did this to him.
The Lestes.
The Lestes. And this is part of the reason why you have this Roman tradition of crucifying the Lestes, these child traffickers. So
rightfully so, if they were true Lestes or child traffickers. But
so he's saying that is the context of that word. And so Jesus being caught, and he says also, like when you read the real Greek, the Greek version of the Septuagint, that this moment when Jesus gets caught in the park with this child on his lap, the child gets up and runs off, and like his covering falls off and the child is naked. And so he's not exactly calling Jesus a pedophile directly.
Right.
But what he's saying is in the larger context of the medical and drug use of the time and era, is that it was a common practice to use the human body as a drug manufacturing plant. And so you would give certain substances, venoms, or, different things
to output something
to specifically these like prepubescent children. And because they were not of full age, their body processes these things differently.
Right.
And so they would extract these substances out of these children's bodies out after making them ingest certain things. And that was how they would get these dotes and antidotes, these Christs and antichrists.
I see. Okay.
Anyway, this is all super heretical to a Christian, right? Like, this is devil talk. You are accusing Jesus of some serious shit.
Yeah.
And obviously he's had crazy repercussions because of it. Anyway, that was like kind of the whole thing of that first podcast with Ammon and Danny, was talking about that. So they do another podcast this week, and like the incident comes out, I'm like watching it on YouTube, and then they're just bleeping a bunch of stuff. And I was like, nah, can't have it. So I go sign up for his Patreon, throw $5 at Danny, because I don't want the bleeps. I want to hear the source.
Yeah, you want to hear the words.
Yeah.
It's important.
And so I listened to this thing. It's like this nice, like 2-3 hour podcast. And then, and I'll go over that in a second. But then today, Danny drops another podcast because now I'm on his Patreon. So I get a Patreon notification.
All right.
He's got a freaking exorcist interview.
Oh, wow. With a different person?
Yeah, but this is the day after the Hillman podcast. And Danny Hillman is still, Ammon Hillman is still hanging out with Danny. He's like in Florida. Danny's in Florida, just chilling with Danny. And so he's at the studio at the time this exorcist is there.
Oh, wow.
And so he does this whole interview with the exorcist, but towards the end, he starts asking this exorcist, like, if he would be willing to like talk to Ammon. And he's like, no, he's like an apostate. He's bad. But he actually gets him to.
Really?
And so then he releases a part 2 with freaking Ammon and this exorcist talking. And it is just pure like entertainment.
Wow.
Because the exorcist is like, dude, you are literally demonic. You are possessed by a demon. Let me exorcise you.
Wow.
And Ammon's like, bro, you don't read the Bible. Here's the Bible in the Greek. Can you read this? No, I can. So it's super interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. Well, I don't have Patreon, but I would be
I
willing
can share my login with you so you can check it out.
I'll be willing to check it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, Ammon Hillman has like shot straight to the top of my list of people I would love to invite for an interview once we start doing those.
Yeah.
Because wow. All right. So the thing about him is, if you watch those podcasts, he's like super theatric. Like he's like putting on a bit of a performance as he talks, right? Like he gets into the reading. Like he he tries to put himself there. Like he gets like theatrical with how he reads the Greek and stuff. And it can come off a little like eccentric, maybe off-putting, depending on your like standpoint
Taste,
coming
yeah.
into it. But that doesn't, like, I'm well beyond like the way someone like appears causing me to like completely discount what they say. Like what you say and how you look or how you appear, how you come off, they're different things.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to like accept his eccentricities and just, I want to hear what he has to say. Anyway, so yeah, in this week's episode, there was a lot more talk of like, just, I guess, fleshing out more of those details, Ammon's background, just the idea of like the Greek sources. Anyway, it's just opened up this whole fascination for me because it makes me think of like Brian Murescu's work, because he has a whole thing about trying to prove that Christianity is a continuation, that the early Christianity, before it was organized by the Romans, early Christianity was a decentralized group of Christian cults that could just as easily be seen as an extension of Greek religion.
Right.
Like Jesus Christ could just be the new Dionysus. There was a point in time where Dionysus was new, right? Like to the Greeks, like they already have this polytheistic religion, and most of the cults just accepted him. It was actually, according to Brian Murescu, it was actually mostly Greeks, people of the Greek faiths, who became the early Christians, and not Jews.
Right.
Jews were, most of the Jews anyway, were like into their religion, right? Whereas the Greeks were like, oh, some new God here claiming, like all the claims of Jesus aren't like too crazy to them. So like they can just add him to their pantheon.
Right.
And they have all these other practices, and a lot of them are these drug rituals. And anyway, I think the interpretations between Brian Murescu and Ammon Hillman, I don't know how much they would agree, but they're both can read the Greek sources.
Yeah.
And both of them believe that there was these like drug cults involved in early Christianity. But Ammon is specifically saying, no, like it's not just that. It's that the way they were accessing these drugs is the reason why the Romans called him a lestes and crucified him.
Right. Yeah, they were almost like they were trying to just get rid of those types of parts of the original, or what was the derivative of their own religion at the time, right?
Right. But what I found to be pretty interesting is like
the heretics.
Ammon is like, dude, I want to debate people about this. I really do. But every time I try and like line
they just
up,
call me a heretic, and they call me a
they're not willing to, and so Danny was able to, just because he happened to have this guy scheduled for the next day, they were able to get that to happen.
That's interesting. I would definitely love to hear
and it
that.
wasn't really a real debate because the guy was unwilling to, and he wasn't actually a Greek scholar himself, right? He was just like, he's an exorcist, right? So it wasn't.
He wasn't really prepared
it wasn't really
to
set up
debate
to
on
be an
any
actual
kind of Greek.
debate, right?
Yeah.
But what the conversation ended up being was the exorcist trying to like figure out like what brought Ammon away from Christianity.
So he was more just trying to figure out Ammon himself, and not like what Ammon was really trying to say.
Yeah. And he's like offering for Ammon to like come to him off of any sort of podcast and come visit, and like he'll perform an exorcism for him, and they can have a conversation. And Ammon's like, nah, bro, I have no interest in that. Like, I don't want to join your cult. And he's like, dude, what did he say? It was so funny. He was like, he was like, make sure you enjoy this $5,000 payment that Danny's about to give you to appear on here. Because apparently Ammon, like, he has this whole YouTube channel called Lady Babylon, which I promptly subscribed to. he's got this whole YouTube channel and he doesn't monetize it. He like believes from his study of Greek, he's like really enthralled, like immersed in like the Greek culture and religion. And like, he's trying to like appease the muse. And for him, like, as far as that religion goes, like to accept money for the endeavor would be to like basically the muse would leave him for it. So he's unwilling to monetize his channel, which also helps him to be able to talk about this stuff without being super hard censored.
Yep.
Which means he may or may not have even taken a payment for Danny to appear on the podcast.
It sounds like you didn't based on that comment, but
gives him the power to comment to this guy. We're like, yeah, are you here for your freaking $5,000? And Danny's like, no, I'm going to donate it to a church. And he's like, yeah, your church? So he's paying you. Oh, bro.
Wow.
It's, and we've talked a little bit about this. Like, we've talked about how, like, the history of
religion in general is not...
Well, specifically Christianity has been very aggressive about shutting down the beliefs of everyone else. Yes. And this exorcist really proved it out the point.
Yes.
Like his podcast with Danny, and he was talking about how exorcism works, and he was talking about like what types of things they're exorcising from people. He thinks like if you ever do marijuana, you're opening yourself to a demon. He thinks if like other cultures who have like connections with different spirits, he's like any people practicing anything and talking to any spiritual entity, those are demons. Those are the fallen angels. These people are Satanists. Everyone is a Satanist except for Christians. And it just like really demonstrates the like close-minded, harsh, judgmental attitude that you feel, that I feel anyway, sort of possessed the motivation of Christians to go around the world eradicating people's culture.
At least the fundamentalists, right?
Because you show up anywhere, well, no, like Catholics. Like,
I mean, they could be
when the Spanish
the fundamentalists.
Well, yeah, in a way. Like the Spanish came here, and anytime they, like, if they encounter anyone who worships anything, that's not their God. Like, they are devil worshippers. They are witches. They are, and they need to be cleansed of that, you know, impurity. And I think that's one of the things that has done the most damage to this world, done the most damage to our understanding of history, to our ability to preserve historic documents, to an open-minded approach of how the world works. Like, you can't envision modern Christianity like going around the world just massacring people for their beliefs these days. Like, we're kind of in an age of history where they can't get away with that.
Right.
But
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
You can see that attitude embodied, the way I took it, embodied in this exorcist guy.
Well, and you can definitely see it in the way people treat other people and the way that they interact with other people, whether they're not murdering them, but they're trying to in a sense of the word, especially getting them off of, at least trying to exorcise them from modern topics and modern, like, you know, conceptual, like the what people are ingesting in modern day, right?
Right.
They have a sort of,
well, in the process of us doing this podcast and the process of us like learning from Graham Hancock and learning about these ancient cultures and learning about these religions with all these polytheistic gods and who interacted with humans. And I get, it's funny because there's almost like a validation of the ideas of these people in the aggressive suppression of the ideas, the aggressive judgment of the ideas.
Right.
Because, you know, it's not that Christians are saying these people's gods are fake. They're saying they're real, but they're not gods, they're demons.
Right.
So
So they are entities.
You're
in a
doing
sense.
real magic here, and you are connecting with entities, and you are doing these things. But who you're talking to is actually demons, not
Yeah. Right.
and.
Not the one true.
I feel like that's a very judgmental and closed-minded read on all of world religion. Come on, like the idea.
Well, and how many
It's like
religions are monotheistic and how many are polytheistic, right? And
Right.
especially in history, majority of them are polytheistic until you get to modern day, or at least somewhat contemporary.
Well, and what Christianity did is they like pulled this trick, right? Like they're like, oh yeah, all those entities you're talking about, yeah, they're real. It's just
they're not.
We renamed them. They're not gods.
Those are all
There's one
angels
God.
or apostles
We
or
serve the
demons or-
one true God.
Yeah.
And you guys and everything else that is not that one true God is either an angel or a demon.
Yeah.
And we have a story that the demons came here. And so if any of you are in contact with anything, no matter what it is, it's a demon because it's here on earth. By definition, it's a demon. And therefore, you're evil. Your religion is evil. Your practices are evil. It's interesting, like the way, like I used to think that Christianity just thought all that stuff was BS, but it's not. That's not really
Not
the truth of
necessarily
it.
the truth of it, huh? Yeah. I definitely want to listen to that podcast now.
Yeah, like listening to him in that order, the Ammon one, then the
Yeah.
exorcist guy, and
Yeah.
then he actually split off the part where Ammon joins that guy, and they
In
have
the same within the same episode, or
No, he splits it off into a
To a
third
whole
one.
nother episode.
Yeah, like a part.
Oh,
He calls
okay.
it a part 2. It's not a debate. Is not the right
Yeah.
thing for it. And
conversation.
yeah, well, it was like an attempted conversion that was
An attempted-
spectacularly failed.
An attempted exorcism.
Yeah. But Ammon, he's I find him super interesting. I would love to interview him, and I want to find out. He was talking about he like teaches Greek, and he like hosts these, and I don't know if he's the one that hosts these intensives or something. Dude, I would love to learn. That would be so sick.
Yeah, I mean that seems like
I mean, it'd be a huge undertaking.
a
but
huge undertaking, but I would love to.
even
at
if it
least
takes
hear,
me 20 years, but like it would still be fun.
It'll be worth it in the
It would
end.
be cool to like actually be able to read from these ancient sources in the ancient tongue.
Man,
And there was just such a shift in the world in that transition because Greeks were a lot more open about religion, right? Like, and so were the Romans.
till the end.
Well, till they converted to Christianity, right?
Yeah.
But for the whole Roman Empire up till then, like they would conquer a place, but they would let them keep their religion, which
kinda
is
like,
why most of the Mediterranean was
Yep.
still practicing Greek
Yep.
under the Romans.
It's kind of like what's his name, Genghis Khan,
Right.
and the way he would,
He's like, I want your tax money, and that's about it. Like,
Yep. You
do
can
what
practice
want,
and do whatever you want, and I just want you to support what it is that I'm doing.
which supports our view of what governments are as a bunch of gangsters trying to collect rent.
Exactly.
Some of them want you to worship them, though, too.
Some of them want you to worship them. That's right.
Or either them or their gods so that they can collect the tax money from the church, too. Anyway, it was fascinating, dude. Like, it was really...
That is
an interesting series of... I want to see Ammon and Brian Murarescu
Have a conversation.
I would pay
That would be
money
fascinating.
to see that.
We should comment on that podcast to Danny Jones and try to get them both on.
Now that I'm on the Patreon, I'm totally gonna comment.
Now that you
on
have
the
a little
Patreon.
bit, you'd be like, hey, I
Well,
want to
'cause-
see these two together.
Yeah, exactly. That would be so sick.
And I don't think he's had Brian Murray Rescue on yet.
I don't think so. No.
So I think that would be a fascinating podcast.
I think Rogan has had him. I
Yeah.
think Friedman has talked to him.
And
but
Graham's done his own thing with him too.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't
Oh
know.
no, that was part of the Joe Rogan podcast because they had Graham on remote with him.
Right.
That's what it was. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much to life to just be dogmatic. That's all I'm going to say on this whole topic, really. And the way that I see it, being dogmatic and having a singular view and not,
being willing to kill for your beliefs.
Exactly.
Is crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Just live and let live. Let people like if you just want to pull from Christianity the message of love and acceptance, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
but
I mean the fundamental
the organized institution of it is a different matter.
It could be a problem,
and it has caused a lot of violence throughout the world and a lot of intolerance.
You know, just to finish this off, because I know we're getting pretty close here to the end. We got some. I want to play this on our next episode, just to tease a little bit. I want to play this 3 or 4 part. Maybe we'll do the 4th part, but at least a 3-part interview with an alien.
Yeah, like a video interview.
It's a video audio interview of it.
We can have an interview with an alien and an interview with you can't call them an alien with a reptilian because they're from here.
We don't know.
They're more from here than we are.
And this other alien, and actually, you're going to find out. I don't want to spoil it.
Don't spoil it then. We'll just leave it.
I'll leave the spoiler there, but we're going to get a little bit more of intellectual insight into a lot of the topic of Ammon and some of that other stuff.
Cool.
And we're going to have a little bit more of an insight as to what our potential future might hold. And it'll be fascinating as whether you believe it or not. And I can't say that I fully believe what it is that we'll see either, but I think it'll be a great intellectual exercise. And I think it'll be fun for us to have a conversation about it after it's over.
I also just want to say part of the things that this has had my brain spinning on, after the context of it all and what we talk about is you got the modern UFO phenomenon. You got what are these apparently different species with apparently different beings communicating with different people, giving different messages, can be interpreted through the Christian lens of angels and demons.
Or multiple religions.
Right. Can be interpreted through these ancient polytheistic religions of these gods who do different things, are responsible for different things. Can be interpreted through so many lenses. And I feel like most of this stuff is actually more compatible than it is contradictory when you are more open to all of it.
Absolutely.
Because if the UFO phenomenon is real, there is zero reason and zero evidence that it absolutely just started in the last 50 years since the nuclear bomb.
Yeah,
it's definitely been an uptick since then in the statistics of it and the documentation of it. But the phenomenon seems to go way back. This is where Diana Pasulka plugs in.
Absolutely.
And I think that humans have been interfacing with entities, whether they come down to Earth on craft, whether you take a drug and are transported to another realm where you interact with them in quote unquote your head,
or maybe even these telepathic autistic kids who are able to go to this place called the Hill and communicate with these so-called gods,
or whether you're a shaman of a small tribe who doesn't have an organized religion, but you just take drugs and you go down into and you communicate with the earth spirits around you, and the spirit of the vine gives you wisdom, right? I find it hard to
separate it all.
Look at all this stuff and be like, oh, you person who has only and whose culture has only ever known living in the jungle, who has only ever interacted with God's creations,
possibly
who has created this way to have a spiritual experience. Well, clearly you're only interfacing with evil,
right? That's the only thing that makes
God
sense.
put you in a realm where
if
you pull from nature and you learn from nature, the nature spirits, apparently the nature spirits are evil too.
Yeah. It's all
the spirit of a vine is evil.
It's a contradictory fallacy.
So anyway, it's all super interesting things. It's brain food.
Yep.
And I advocate for open-mindedness. I advocate for curiosity. I advocate for hearing everybody out and,
ingesting all you can.
Love and
let live.
Love and curiosity. That's the way to be, I think. So,
well, thank you all for listening. This has been a podcast where we didn't know where it was going to go, and here we are now. So if you have anything you want to add to the conversation, you can email us at host@dualitycheck.net. If you want to go and check out any of our content, you can follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast platforms. If you want to get some of the video content, you want to see some of these videos that we're playing throughout, go on YouTube or Rumble. You can also find all the content, all of the links, all of the descriptions, everything that we're talking about is going to be on our website at dualitycheck.net.
Every once in a while when we're sharing like these Instagram videos, though, sometimes they don't stay up very long, so I will link to them, but sometimes they get pulled down before I can share them and download them. But
they will be embedded within our videos a lot of the time, so if you want to go and
there was only one time a couple weeks ago where I tried to get one and it was gone before I could download it.
That's right. Yeah, that happens rarely, but if you want to get it before, if we get the video editing done and you want to check it out, go check out our YouTube and Rumble. And if not, we'll have all the links and we'll have all the descriptions of what we're looking at. So
let us know what you guys think. Like, I know I went off on some weird rants today. Like, what did you guys think about my
Give us some
rants?
insights.
And what are your opinions? That all matters to us.
Absolutely.
And also, help us out if you wouldn't mind with leaving us a review on iTunes.
Yep.
If you're listening on Spotify, leave us a review for the episode on Spotify. If you're on YouTube, comment, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. It really helps our channel get that little bit more exposure because we are tiny little guys who've done no marketing. So help us out.
Yeah, we're working on all that, but I appreciate all of the interactions we've had so far. Whether you like it or dislike it, we want to hear from you.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. All right, we'll see you all next week.
Love you guys. Adios.